Well, tell me, mama, what's going on? Tell me, darling, what's going on?
Welcome back, everybody. Happy New Year. Bacon and Egg Show, episode 35, January 3rd, 2021. We made it.
Made it.
We got
2021,
here.
We're there, dude.
We got here. Before we get into, before we get started today, I was going to say, like, this is going to be a short show. I know, like, it's just after the holidays. Nothing's really gone on. I actually kind of thought, like, maybe we could push this out another week and just wait till there's some, like, actual sports news for us to get into.
Right. Nothing going on at all.
Yeah. Nothing going on. Except Texas football coaching changes, Texas basketball just putting together some action yesterday. But let's guys, how are we doing? We hanging in there? We surviving 2021 so far, or we have our hands burnt off from the group text messages that have been flying around these last few days?
Yeah. Hey, Kerry, Happy New Year. Mike, Happy New Year. Thanks for joining us as always. Happy to have you here. Our normal listeners, our regular listeners know that we took a week off last week and came back, and we decided we wanted to record on Sunday, or today's Sunday, because we wanted to record after the day of the Texas-Kansas basketball game. And it turns out that was probably a good idea, because there's a whole lot that went down yesterday in terms of hiring a new head coach, for firing and hiring of a new head coach at the University of Texas. And we're happy to have Michael Holland on today. Mike, what's up, man? Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year, guys. Yeah, a lot of news. So it all happened, it seemed like, within a 2 to 3 hour window. It's exciting. I can't remember a time where Texas football and basketball have been in a more exciting place together. So it's been a long time. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going to happen. So Kerry, you want to jump into the news of the football team?
Yeah, let's start here. Let's start with the Alamo Bowl, and I'll spare our viewers here the grainy details of what played out in San Antonio. But let's kind of talk about big picture here, like with this Alamo Bowl. I think, we were all in, texting the night of that game. And I think to tie this in with the Tom Herman firing, I think the Alamo Bowl kind of captured a lot of our frustration of the Tom Herman era, right? Like moments of, what the hell are you doing? There's that time in the first half where it's like, what is this? Like, Colorado's a terrible team. Like, why isn't Bijan Robinson getting more carries? Why isn't? And then we see in the second half, Casey Thompson starts lighting it up,
ripping it up,
but just the frustration of, like, where was this? And we know Colorado's not great. I mean, they're okay, but, like, they're probably not a mid-tier Big 12 team. Like, this is a team that Texas should have handled. They did handle. But I think it just captured a lot of the frustration with the Tom Herman regime. And it's, in a way, like, kind of looking back at how that bowl game played out, it kind of, I don't know, it's kind of poetic in a way, how everything ended.
I sort of think that sums it. Excuse me, guys. Let me get a little coffee here real quick. I think that Alamo Bowl really sums up for me, and I don't even know how much it's worth talking about, other than Casey Thompson getting some really nice run and looking like he could be. And we haven't seen him in that action before. We've never really seen him. He was put into, for meaningful, if you want to call it meaningful, snaps. Obviously, he took quite a few snaps that game, more than he has his entire career. And to be able to see him in action was great. But other than that, I didn't really take away a ton from the ball game, other than the fact that under Tom Herman, Texas continued to put people or continue to fail to put people into position to be successful, and refused to put their best athletes on the field at all times in critical situations. So for me, it's just it sums it all up. But it's also for me that the reason that the Alamo Bowl, there's a reason that Tom Herman was fired yesterday and Steve Sarkisian was hired, Mike.
I mean, you guys weren't excited about that beatdown against Colorado, man. They couldn't even complete a 3-yard forward pass. No,
That
I
was
mean,
some of the worst quarterback play
It was bad,
for
man. I'm sitting
Colorado
there-
that I've seen in a long time. Like when I
That's a-
talk about
that's
like
a-
mid-tier, I think the lower tier Big 12 quarterbacks would be an
Yeah, that's-
improvement over what
that's a-
Colorado trotted out there. That was
that's a
bad.
3-yard out. These are 3-yard speed outs that these guys are two hopping to their receivers. It was ugly, man. I mean, it didn't get me excited, Mike. No, I know you were being sarcastic there, but I think that there's absolutely nothing to draw from that game, other than the fact that some of those young O linemen, I think, getting to see them in action and seeing, what's that young center's name?
Jake Majors.
Yep.
To see Majors in there, and you can still see like some of the footwork. It's not perfect. You know, he's not a finely polished, stone gem at this point, but he's got the tools to be there. And I'm excited to see what these young guys in this offensive line are going to do. That I guess I shouldn't be as negative about the ball game, because I do think that really that was a positive to come out of this, was some of that young O-line play.
So I think that's where a lot of the frustration and what really doomed Tom Herman was the fact that you see these flashes and these glimpses of like, it's a growth greatness out of this team and what this team could be, where you see Bijan Robinson going absolutely crazy in the first couple of series, and then he disappears until, the 2 minute, I don't even know what that was.
He got one touch in the second quarter.
Yeah, I mean, it was just ridiculous. So, I mean, and fans are just like, what, even David Paul, or not David Pollock, was somebody on Jesse
Palmer.
Yeah, just going berserk about like, I mean, this guy, he's just the smartest guy in the room thing, man. Like he just outthinks things, and just, oh man, I just think that it was time. Kind of weird timing for all this to happen. He just went 7-3. I mean, he's like a bounce away from playing in the Big 12 title. So, but the expectations here should be to win, Big 12 championships, and just hasn't gotten that done yet. So, but I think some of the positives were Bijan Robinson, obviously. Alfred Collins is going to be a superstar. The defensive tackles are going to be him and Keandre Coburn are going to be a force for the next couple of years. DeMarvion Overshown continues to get better. Jordan Whittington sighting was nice to see. So there are some positives there. And I agree. Colorado's not a great team. Probably not even a good team, really. But you still want to do these things to these type of opponents, and that's something that Texas struggled to do with lesser opponents this year, was to just put them away. So that was kind of the key takeaways for me. But I'm super excited about the new hire. What's y'all's take on?
Before getting into Sarkisian, I want to hit on something you just mentioned about like the timing of the firing. I think over the last like 48 hours or so, I think kind of this bigger picture that we've been discussing for the last couple months may have kind of cleared up a little bit. I think while the timing wasn't perfect, I think the fact that it was after the semifinal game, the announcement came after Alabama clinched their spot in the national title game. That provides a little context, because that's kind of Chris Del Conte's MO, right? Like he's not firing a coach unless he's got one locked in. Like there's not going to be a search committee after a firing and those things. And then also the news about Urban Meyer potentially taking the Jaguars job. And I think that, that provides a little more clarity and kind of context as to what may have played out over these last few months, where, if you're talking about an NFL job versus the Texas job, does anybody fault Urban Meyer for looking at the NFL job, especially one that's going to have the number 1 pick in the draft? So while the timing isn't perfect, I mean, I guess it makes a little more sense, and I think we're going to learn more about why this process played out the way that it did. But it still didn't mean that Chris Del Conte handled this. I think the statement that he released in December supporting, well, I don't know if you call it supporting Tom Herman, but
supporting
was kind of botched and I think mishandled.
So supportive that he had to issue a second statement to reiterate that the current plan was to have Tom Herman as the head coach in 2021. But that, to me, the thing is, it's pretty obvious when he released that statement, I think that he really did think he wanted Tom Herman to be the head coach in 2021. And then I think, what's the old phrase? Money talks. And some of these big money donors decided to actually say, hey guys, this guy's not coming back. Figure it out, but we need to get rid of this guy. And I think basically what was CDC was afforded the opportunity to do exactly what you said, Kerry, and that's have somebody in the bag before announcing Tom Herman's termination. He knew he was going to have to fire the guy, but he just didn't have the guy lined up. So we get a guy in Steve Sarkisian that, like you were saying, he's coaching right now for a national title at Alabama as the offensive coordinator. And when they announced that Tom Herman was fired, I immediately told Daniela, my wife, I said, they're probably gonna get somebody that just lost last night. But then I was thinking, like, well, of those staff, who would be? And it turned out being somebody that actually had won the night before and was just getting ready to play for the national title. So the timing of it is, we've said this before on this show, is like, they may just have to wait until an NFL season is over or a college season is over before they make these things. And I think that's the earliest you can make this call, is after the semifinal. They know we're going to the final. We know we're playing for a national championship. And then you're comfortable announcing that you're leaving the school to take a head coaching job. This may have been lined up for longer than we know, longer than, the last 48 hours. This may have been lined up for a while, and they've just been waiting to make this announcement for this exact reason. I think, for all of CDC's faults, I think he can run a tight enough ship when he wants to where something like this would stay under wraps. So it was sort of a surprise. I don't think Sarkisian was somebody that we had mentioned a ton in terms of who we would think would be a replacement, or maybe even who we would want as a replacement. But Mike, your point that you were saying yesterday was Sarkisian seems to be the guy. He's the good recruiter. He's a great offensive mind. And when you put those two together on campus in Austin, good things can happen.
Yeah, no, that's the combination of those two things. He's an elite recruiter.
Right.
I mean, just look at the quarterbacks that he's recruited. It's pretty crazy. So, and then you put the fact that, he's, this great offensive mind, and what he can do with some of these guys that are coming back. Texas should have a really, really high-powered offense. I think you're going to, see improved line play with some of these younger guys. Pretty much the entire line comes back outside that left tackle spot, but you've got, obviously a couple of guys there that have been playing there. So, and then you got the two backs coming back. You've got a load of receivers coming back, and now you see what Casey Thompson did. I mean, it's nice to see what he can do. Granted, it wasn't the greatest competition, but hey, he still came out and balled out. I mean, you could see some things there that say that he could play at this level. And then I think Sarkisian's got to make a phone call to Sam, and we'll see what happens with that. And then you have to see. I think it's a shot in the arm for 2022 recruiting class. There were a lot of tweets yesterday from the 21 and 22 class where you basically see guys pretty excited. I mean, the timing of it is kind of a good thing, because it's like, hey, you're hiring someone that's about to play for a national championship. That the aesthetics of that is, really good. It's from Nick Saban's coaching tree. So I mean, and you got a lot of guys from the 21 class that ended up at Alabama, like the Brockermeyers, and on the offensive side of the ball, Jalen Milroe, and now this guy's taking this job here in Austin. So I think he's kind of lining things up to maybe make a run at some of these 22 guys that I'd love to say Quinn Ewers is still he's got a year, so I mean he's got a lot of work to do, but we'll see what he can do, and it's just a shot in the arm to the program. It's exciting times right now.
Yeah, I think a couple things that really stand out with Sark for me is that for one, you mentioned him being an elite recruiter, but also an elite developer of quarterbacks. I mean, you just look at the guys that of course we can talk about Tua and Matt Leinart and these guys that were already big time quarterbacks that he's coached before, but Mac Jones. I mean, he's a Heisman finalist. And that's, I mean, he's talented. Yeah, he's at Alabama, but I think it's in terms of recruiting, I just think recruits can't help but look at like, I think the Quinn Ewers thing was a lot of, besides Tom Herman's like personality and stuff, seeing Sam essentially regress from his time on his first 2 seasons on campus into the frustrated guy going off the field at halftime in the Alamo Bowl that just wasn't getting any traction getting the ball downfield. Like he regressed during that time. And I think someone like Ewers sees that. And I think to have someone that's like one of the best developers of quarterbacks in the country come in and just like, I think whether it's Casey Thompson, Hudson Card, Charles Wright, and I feel like I think there's going to be some free agency going on here. I think there's going to be a lot of transfers coming into the Texas program from wherever that want to play for this guy. And I think we're going to actually see some real development with the quarterback position from the beginning of a season to the end of the season, where we go, wow, this player actually got better from game 1 to game 12. What a concept. But like, I don't know. I'm pumped about that part of it. But like, I just think the way Alabama's approached Sark says a lot. Like the way that they've approached this whole thing. I think, what was it, when Lane Kiffin took the job to lead and was leaving Alabama, Saban just told him, don't worry about coaching the bowl game. Just go ahead and hop on the plane and get out of here. They're not doing that. Like, and a lot of the talk from Tuscaloosa was that Sark was being groomed to take over for Saban. Like, this is a guy that they've held in really high regard there. And they're not happy about losing. I mean, they understand it, but like, I think that speaks a lot towards what kind of coach and what kind of person Texas is getting with this hire.
So what do you guys think about just the other stuff at Texas? Like, the politics of it. How do you think he's going to handle, because you can say Alabama this, Alabama that. It's not the University of Texas as far as all these other things are concerned. How do you think he's going to handle, approach? What's going to be different from Tom Herman? What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I think we're going to see I think his appearances will be very well measured. I think that it'll be very calculated, precise, if you will. I think we're going to hear a lot of the same message from him early on, over and over again, sort of just getting his feet wet, getting used to all these things, because I don't think he's necessarily a fit as Texas coach when it comes to all of those extra things that come with it. And to be fair, not many people are cut out for this job. So if he can just come in and keep his head above water, pardon me, and just really, just be himself, and he'll warm up to this. I think that I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting to see him in this environment.
Where it's going to be pressure from day one. I mean, this team is going to be pretty good next year.
It's immediate. The expectations, even though you're coming in as a new coach, the expectations aren't often to win a conference title immediately. That's what the expectation is going to be for Steve Sarkisian next year, to at least play for one, but to probably win one with the talent that's coming back on this team. So, Kerry, it's one of those things where, is he built to handle all of the rigors that come with being the head coach at Texas? I don't know that he has all those tools in his toolbox at this time, but I feel like he's one of those cats that he's shown with his sobriety, he's shown with the changes that he's made in his life, that he is willing to work on those things. And that's what makes me excited about this, is a guy that isn't coming in and already thinking that he knows it all, which is what we had for the last 4 years.
Now, granted, I don't think Sark is a card-carrying member of Mensa. At least he hasn't said that yet. I think Tom Herman mentioned that at his first press conference, or he was asked or something. I don't know. But like,
yeah.
But like, I think a couple things. I don't think he has to deal with the politics necessarily. I mean, I think being at places like Bama and USC, which from all accounts, USC they're talking about their boosters and their like they might be up there with Texas in terms of like just too many cooks in the kitchen, too many people that have money and think that they know best, like those kinds of things. And, that might have contributed to part of his situation at USC, but I don't think he necessarily is going to have to deal with these things. I think, for one, he's going to be a huge improvement over Tom Herman in terms of relations with people. And that was, I think, one of Tom Herman's biggest downfalls was nobody liked the guy. The big money people didn't like him. The university brass didn't like him. I don't think Chris Del Conte necessarily liked him. So when things kind of go wrong, even if you are just a couple bounces away from making a Big 12 championship, sorry, you don't have a lot of people in your corner to support you. I think Sark's going to have that. And I think Chris Del Conte is kind of falling into that role of being the point person for the big money people to deal with. And
yeah, he seems very humble, unlike Tom Herman. Tom Herman probably doesn't even believe that he's been fired still. So
yeah, right.
Yeah, he showed up today and was asking why his key card didn't work to get into the building. Like, this is that guy. But Kerry, that's a great point. I also feel like, because CDC, that's where he's at his best, right? Fundraising is his deal. He's not a PR person, okay? He's shown that. But when it comes to big guys with a lot of money, or ladies with a lot of money, that's your dude. And he doesn't mind taking those phone calls. He doesn't mind doing that, Kerry. And that's a really great point, because if he can take that load off of Sark and allow him to focus on being the football coach. And the thing is you're right, with the media, the relationship's going to be there where he's going to treat them differently. The press, the air and the press conferences will feel different. Just the entire environment is going to have a different feel to it, rather than, because people aren't walking on eggshells because the guy knows everything, or he thinks he knows everything. And, it's just going to be a different environment. It's going to be a different feel. And we'll see how that plays out over the course of his tenure here, to see if it works in terms of actually being a fit, if that style works here. But we'll see. I'm excited about it. I'm excited to see this develop. And we did get a good coach. And Alabama did not want him to leave, but this is sort of, and Kerry, I know you were going to touch on this a little bit, but sort of the redemption arc of this guy coming into this program at this point. I mean, it's something that we have to really take into account.
Yeah, that's a good, let's jump into that, because I think it's a really important part of this story and part of where this goes. And that, I mean, for those that aren't aware, this was a guy that took the University of Washington job at 35, was an up and comer coach from Pete Carroll's USC program that was pretty successful. I think they played in some big games, but like won some, may or may not have won some championships. I guess it just depends on money. Yeah, it depends on what record books you look at and what, whatever. But, and then he goes back to USC, and his alcoholism got the best of him, and it ended terribly. And that's where, he's going on 5 years sober now. And for one, I think Chris Del Conte and the University of Tech, I think everybody's done their proper vetting. I think they've called everybody they need to call. I think they've done all the background checks and character references and all those kinds of things. He wouldn't be getting this job if he wasn't checking out those boxes. But I think he mentioned something in his little introductory Zoom call yesterday, because he was asked about his recovery and his sobriety, and just the way that he's answering these questions is so refreshing. Because, I mean, he mentioned something. He was like, when you get publicly humiliated the way that I did on that kind of stage, like, it humbles you. Like, I mean, can anybody think of a greater, like, you're coaching the University of Southern California and you're fired because, like, you're allegedly showing up to practices drunk. You give a, like, profanity-laced speech to boosters when you're, drunk one night.
I feel like that's me as, like, a head coach.
Well, but, like, just the way that played out, your dream job, he's a California guy. He was there under Pete Carroll. Like, here's this opportunity for him that just couldn't have gone worse. And instead of disappearing into oblivion and being the guy that was just, like the drunk ex-USC coach that nobody hears from ever again, he has this redemption story. And he's, Nick Saban brought him on as an analyst, works his way up to an offensive coordinator position. He goes to the Falcons for a couple seasons to get some NFL experience. He comes back to Alabama. And there was an article that I saw written last night that kind of, I think, summed this up perfectly. that at this point in their histories and where they are, Sarkisian and Texas are a perfect fit for each other in terms of like the redemption, the path to get back on top. And we talked, I think we mentioned this kind of in our text thing, like it's, everybody wanted Urban Meyer, but sometimes it's not so much the coach that you want, it's the coach that you need.
Right.
And I think this is a guy that, I mean, he, again, it was so refreshing listening to him because he understands the expectations. He knows what Texas should be. And I don't think he's going to screw this opportunity up. I mentioned this to Jay before the show. Texas is one of those jobs where it's typically like a career achievement award. It's like oh, you've made it. So like you get to Texas, you have all these things built in and you can just put it on cruise control and the program will just take care of everything for you. You're just going to win games by just showing up. And I think our previous couple head coaches have treated it that way, where I think Sarkisian's coming in saying, I cannot screw this up. I have to get this right. I've been given this opportunity at this level. And I think I don't know. There's something that feels there's kind of a story arc that's going on here that feels pretty interesting. Decade in the wilderness for Texas and Sarkisian working his way back into the big time, and here it is.
Like a Disney movie right now.
It's fascinating.
No, it really is.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
No, I was, kind of play devil's advocate. Obviously I've been on the show talking about Texas. This isn't a place for someone to learn on the job. And I know, Jay, you've said that before. So this is kind of just play devil's advocate. I'm a little bit of a hesitation, just with, I don't know, man, like you got to hit the ground running here. You're going to have really, really high expectations here this next year with the roster coming back. I mean, you got to nail your assistants this time. None of this, firing your assistants after 2 years and then
Sean Watson.
I mean, this is just, you gotta get these things right from the jump. You got to get recruiting back on track. You got to lock this state down again. Because when Texas has been really successful, it's been because we've owned the state. And so I'm a little nervous just about the fact that this seems like a little bit of learning on the job. And I can't come on the show and say that we need someone that's been there, done that, and then have someone that's hired and, that doesn't have the huge coaching experience. I know he was the coach of the USC, but still, you kind of saw how that turned out. But I mean, if he can just get a couple of these things right to get the ball rolling here, then it really kind of will take care of itself. And just don't be an idiot with the people around you that are important. Like that's Tom Herman just couldn't get out of his own way. And that's like the main thing you have to do here. And Mac Brown figured it out after a few years. And, I just don't want this to turn into a John Mackovic situation where, great offensive mind, but obviously nobody's had that type of demeanor and attitude since Mackovic. I mean, obviously Herman has a little bit of an edge to him like that. And I think that's why that didn't work out. And so like you saying, Kerry, that he has more of a humbleness and has been through things, I think that could really help him push forward. But I still worry about, we talked about Urban Meyer's probably the only guy that could really just turn this program around within 1 to 2 years. Is Sarkisian the guy that can turn this program around in 1 to 2 years? I know everybody's super excited and hyped. There's a little bit of a concern just that who's he bringing with him? Apparently there's supposed to be an all-star staff that's going to be coming. So if he can do that and get the train rolling on some of these things, then I think he's got a chance to be really, really successful here. But as soon as he loses that first game here, especially next year, I mean, it's going to be, how is he going to handle that? It's one thing to be named the head coach. It's another thing to actually go through the process of being the head coach he's going to have 10-win expectations next year. I mean, at least I have 9 to 10 win expectations next year. And anything short of that is unacceptable. Not saying he doesn't need to get a couple of years to figure it out, but it's just, how is he going to handle that type of pressure? So
that's what it's going to take to win the conference. So that's the expectation. If you're going to need to win 10 games if you're going to be playing for a conference title. So I'm with you, Mike. I mean, that is the expectation right away going into this coming season. I am curious because one of the things that we talked about in terms of when not wanting that learn on the job stuff. The learning on the job, a head coach, just being in the routine of being a head coach. And I know that he wasn't always, um, you know, he was there, but was he always there at practice at USC? Some of the time I get that, but when you have at least have that head coaching experience at a big time thing, and now he's going to be able to see that. At least is going to be able to translate that from a short amount of time at these Power Five schools. It's not somebody coming from U of H. It's not somebody coming from, one of
Louisville.
the Louisville. This is somebody that's done it at a Power Five level that at least has a little bit of experience of doing it at that sort of a university. So there will still be a bit of a learning curve. I don't think that he is necessarily, going to come in and give the sort of result that we thought Urban Meyer could get when he would come in here in year one. But I do think the approach will be different. I think that the way that this program, I just think like I said, I used the phrase earlier about the air in the room just feeling different. I think the approach that he is going to take will allow this program to not always feel just at the tip of a knife point, or they'll have a different feel to it. And if that translates, if it translates or not, will determine his success here in Austin.
Yeah, I think he's going to lose games.
Mhm.
Like it's going to happen. I think where this seems a little bit different for me is in that demeanor. Like, again, it's just an intro kind of like press conference thing, but like he comes off as the type that is not going to talk down to the fans and the media and think that, like, it's Texas fans and we have our own kind of reputation, those kinds of things, but we watch a lot of football. Texas fans are pretty knowledgeable fans. And to be talked down to, like, by someone like Tom Herman kind of did, and like just those made the things like losses that much worse. We talk about the eye test on this show. We talk about how these teams look. He just comes off as the type that, like, if Texas loses a game, there's going to be some honesty.
Yeah.
Not the, like, I'm going to throw players under the bus kind of thing, but he seems like he's going to take accountability, and he's going to, like, he doesn't come off as the type that's going to be insulting or demeaning to the fans and the media. And I think that makes a big, big difference.
He's not going to read off the advanced statistics. During the
Right. Like, see, hey, we called the right play in this specific time. It just didn't work. It was supposed to work. It should have worked. But
the punter didn't look at his second option.
He didn't make his second read on a fake punt.
God.
I mean, that was right there. I think
that's a perfect example.
That for me right there was it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you weren't already at the point where you knew Tom Herman wasn't the guy, that should have been it. When you blame your punter for not making his second read on a fake, he was open. We've done it. He was open. He just missed him.
He just didn't see him.
Yeah, but he's also the guy that usually kicks your field goals, Tom. He's not, like, I don't understand, but I'm the sort of humbleness, it's just going to have a different feel to it, man. And that's what I'm most excited for. If there's going to be some growing pains, there's going to be some bumps in the road. I feel like he'll respond to it differently, and I think it'll be good.
I think the way he's going to be successful. Oh, sorry, Jay, to jump in on you, man. I think he's going to be successful because I think the staff that he's going to bring with him is not going to be learn on the job type of staffing. We're hearing some names out there that are, former. Look at Chris Ash. Like, even if he's not retained, like, look what he did here. Like, yeah, he was a head coach at Rutgers. Like, no nonsense guy. Kind of what you're talking about. Very upfront. About what his side of the ball was, where they need to get better. You saw the team get better as they went through the season. So I feel like his support staff is really going to kind of push him through, the transition period. If we get some of the guys that we think we're going to get, and just with his offensive side, if he just doesn't get in his own way like Herman did, it's like, yeah, Sam Ehlinger, a really, really good college quarterback. Maybe Herman should have given Casey Thompson a look because he fits better. And maybe he would have been successful that way. But he I feel like Sarkisian's going to make the right decisions, I guess I should say, when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. And then he just needs to bring some people with him, to recruit at a high level and get the state locked down. And then obviously on the defensive side, just handle it.
Yeah, I like one thing Sarkisian said yesterday about like the talent is here. Like there's championship talent on this team, but something's not right.
Are you
No,
thinking
he
what
was
I'm
like,
thinking?
well, he was like, there wouldn't have been a change. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but that's what he was like. There wouldn't have been the need for change if
No.
something wasn't working right. Like, but the talent is here, but something hasn't been going right here, or else there wouldn't have been a change.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great approach to say, like, he's kind of setting that expectation. Like, the players are here. It's up to him and his new staff to get in and figure out what is not working here and putting those players in the best position to succeed. I just love that approach. Like, he's not taking this like, oh, well, we need to come in and rebuild this roster with my guys, or we need to come in and like just that kind of, he's not dropping like, we need to build a culture and we need to get aligned and we need like these buzzwords and this shit. Like, it's just,
Jeez.
it's like, we got good players here. Let me bring in the assistants. Let's figure out what we need to do to win a Big 12 championship and be back in the national conversation. Okay,
Yeah,
let's go to work.
You probably watch the tape, snap the ball, turn around, hand it off to number 5, enjoy it.
It's pretty simple. Yeah,
Yeah.
enjoy. It is refreshing, and it's sort of the fact that we're going to get talked to. Like, anybody can look at this team and see that it's talented. And that's why we were so frustrated, is because we knew it was talented, and Tom Herman was still pulling the same shit week after week. And I'm just excited that, Steve Sarkisian isn't just concerned about going 1-0 this week or whatever. Like, if I have to hit, and if he pulls that out at any point, I may lose a little faith in him. But I'm just happy that he didn't come out and say, guys, we're just trying to go 1-0 in this recruiting season and 1-0 in this.
He seems like he gets it, unlike Herman, where it's like, oh, Bijan's not the lead running back from the start of the year because he needs to work on his pass protection. Well, it's like, well, if you don't have to pass the ball if you just hand the ball.
Yeah, if he gets 40 touches a game, you don't need to pass it, right?
You don't need to pass the ball at that point. Yeah, who cares?
Well, guys, we got about a minute here before a break. Anything else? Anything that stands out about this hire? Any nuggets or tidbits we want to mention about it? I think we don't really know with the staff yet. I think hopefully by next week we'll have a better idea of who he's going to be bringing on board. But before we get into the Runnin Horns,
I'm excited. I'm cautiously excited. Just want to see who he's going to bring with him, and just how he takes that first loss, and how he handles expectations. So that I'm excited for the hire. He's an elite recruiter, so I'm excited to see how that's going to turn everything around. Maybe we'll talk about that here in the next couple of weeks once we get some more recruiting information.
Yeah, and I think the coaches that he retains from this staff will also be as important as it'll be pretty important in terms of the coaches that he brings in and retains as well. Whether we got a Coleman Hutzler, a Drayton, if Ash is around, keeping Carrington around for recruiting purposes and stuff like that. So that, to me, will, over the next couple of weeks, as we see that develop, will play a key part in shaping that.
Yep, it's gonna be fun to watch. Makes the spring really, really interesting now, football wise.
Yeah.
So, well, let's take a break, guys, and we'll come right back with some positive sports experience talk.
Yeah,
and,
man, PSE, baby.
Yep, we'll see you on the other side. Welcome back, everybody. The Bacon and Egg Show. Man, great first segment. We can go on all day with all this, and actually, we're gonna continue a little bit on the football side. I know we said we're gonna get into the positive sports experience with Texas basketball, but let's. Jay, you mentioned something during the break that we should hit on. Fire away, man. Take us down this trail.
So I mean, basically, we have. We were talking about the coaches that Sarkisian may or may not bring on, and I think a pretty big name that Texas football fans will be familiar with is worth mentioning at this point, and that's Will Muschamp, being possibly brought on as the defensive coordinator. He's had his ups and downs. He's been a head coach. He's been a defensive coordinator. He's done all these things, and I think that sort of no nonsense. I think I would welcome this change if Muschamp was brought on. If Ash is retained, I love Chris Ash. I've said before, I thought all season Chris Ash is the best coach on campus, period, football coach. But if Muschamp would come on, I'd be a fan of that as well. So, what have you guys been hearing about Muschamp? And do you all think that that's somebody that would be a good fit here?
Mike, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm hearing that barring something unforeseen, that Will Muschamp's going to be the defensive coordinator here. So, yeah, I mean, my thoughts on it were it was a positive sports experience. The last time Will Muschamp was here, I think he was a head coach in waiting, head coach in waiting here at one point. So maybe he's just having an extended head coach in waiting period here.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think someone with that type of tenacity, obviously it didn't work out for him, the head coaching level, but I also think he probably wasn't the best fit
Right.
at South Carolina. So, yeah, I just think it's really interesting. I'm a big fan of Chris Ash too. So just seeing what he did with this defense, I wish we could have our cake and eat it too. Co-defensive coordinators here, but yeah, barring something unforeseen, Will Muschamp should be the guy calling the shots on the defensive side, and he's had really great success in that role. So I'm super excited to see what he can do with with this team here. So what are your thoughts, Kerry? What are you hearing on that side?
Yeah, I've heard myself from a source close to the football program, an ex-player, that the offer's already been made to Muschamp. Like that's already been, like I guess it's just a matter of him accepting and becoming the new defensive coordinator at Texas. I'm going to echo you guys here. I like what Chris Ash did with this defense a lot. I think especially just seeing the way the linebackers improve this season, I think he did a great job. But on the same token, I can't be mad if Muschamp. I'd actually be extremely excited about it. I mean, we talk about what Sarkisian would need. Like he's going to be the offensive coordinator and the head coach, and to have somebody to basically focus, essentially a second head coach, to just focus on the defensive side of the ball, and then you're bringing in a guy that coached at the University of Florida as a head coach and at South Carolina. And I know like the success wasn't quite there, but this is a guy that's been at Texas. He's played, coached teams that made a national title game at Texas, was a head coach in waiting under Mac Brown. I think it's an absolute home run. Absolute home run. And again, it's yeah, it kind of sucks because Chris Ash did such a good job here. And
yeah, great job.
Granted, it was 1 year, and I mean, I guess played devil's advocate. We also saw one great year from Manny Diaz. We saw one great year from these other defensive coordinators that came in, Todd Orlando, and it just didn't, it didn't stick. Where we've seen it with Muschamp, it's kind of the devil thing, and I know the Big 12's changed from a decade ago, but like he's coming back with a different experience and a guy that this is going to be his first defensive coordinator role since leaving Texas. And we talk about the redemption story for Sarkisian. How about Will Muschamp coming back to Austin to kind of rebuild his profile? He's still a young guy, and he's going to want to be a head coach again somewhere. What a great opportunity to come back and get his name back on the positive side of things. And I think it'd be great.
Yeah, no, that would be an amazing thing to see. This guy coming back, more of a redemption story. If he can build his profile back up again, he probably has another chance to get another head coaching job at a big program, because he's still very, high thought of across the country here. I just think the fits probably weren't right at Florida, and then definitely I don't think the fit was right at South Carolina. So,
No.
Love to see a little Coach Blood on the sideline there, firing up the troops on the defensive side of the ball. So obviously we'll wait to get a formal response from the university on the coaching, the support staff that's coming through. But I think, right before break, we were talking about Carrington. I think he's going to be an interesting case because he is such a great, recruiter. And a lot of the guys like this guy. So I think, it'd be interesting to see if he gets retained. Are there any other guys that you guys are thinking you might want to see come back? I mean, I know we were talking about Drayton. Obviously, he's done a great job with the running backs. Is there anybody else that you guys are looking at?
It's Hutzler for me. I would like Coleman Hutzler to come back. It's those, the
Who
guy
worked for
that,
Muschamp, by the way, at South Carolina.
So I mean,
Yeah.
it would make sense there, but for me, it's Hutzler, Drayton, Carrington are the assistants, the positional coaches / recruiting coordinator. What's Carrington's official title? He's got
Director of recruiting, I think, or like,
well, whatever
yeah,
it
it's
is,
something
he's
like
the best. He's among the best at it. So he's a guy that you want to keep on campus. Kerry, any of those stand out to you as being any more important than the others, or maybe somebody I didn't even say that you
I
would want to
mean,
retain?
What about Valai?
yeah, I mean, I guess it just kind of, I mean, I don't know. Some names that I was hearing that could be some really big hitters on the defensive side, like in terms of DB coaches, that real recruiting rainmaker types where like, I know Valai's been good, but like, if you want to bring in some of the top tier SEC defensive back coaches, I'm not going to complain about that. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I like Valai. He's an up and comer. But again, we've talked about learning on the job. Like this isn't the time for up and comers anymore. Except for Huntsler. And that's where I think he's a guy that's been making a name for himself and I think has a real opportunity to be putting himself in a defensive coordinator conversation, not at Texas right now, but like that kind of job. And
Yeah, he has that type of trajectory, and that's sort of why I would like to keep him around at least while Sarkisian is trying to, really get his feet into the ground here. And I know he's not going to talk about this, which I kind of appreciate, but like you were saying, establishing what his program is going to be like, and establishing, just getting comfortable with being the head coach at Texas and having guys on your staff like a Coleman Hutzler and a Stan Drayton. Those are the type of guys that make it easier to get used to being the head coach at the University of Texas, because exactly what they're going to bring to the table. And I think that Ash, even if this, for whatever reason, and I know it seems to be a done deal here with Muschamp, but even if it doesn't work out, with Ash being there, Ash is another type of a guy that you would want to see in that defensive coordinator role. Like you said, a guy that's been a head coach, a guy that can just handle that side of the ball, where Sark won't have to worry about the defense. He'll be able to focus on the offense, stay out of the defensive room, and just take care of what he needs to take care of. So it'll be interesting to see who he retains, but it will tell a story too in terms of if he feels like he needs to have a little bit of that stability on campus, or if the guys that he's bringing in, if he does. I know we were sort of joking yesterday, like if he brings all of his Alabama buddies, who cares who it is? Like just bring them in and
bring Saban too.
Yeah, bring them all. Like, so that to me, I would like some of these guys to stick around, but gonna go ahead and trust the guy. I just don't. It's not like it's Herman bringing over his buddies from Houston,
right?
Like
right.
these are if this would be guys that have this experience at an Alabama,
Right.
at a Pac-12 school, if it's somebody from those days. So it's
not Cougar High.
Yeah, we're not talking Cougar High, boys. This is the big time. So yeah, I can't wait to see how this develops. It's going to be an interesting couple of weeks here to see how this shakes out, and we're going to have a lot to talk about. I know this just went from us only being excited about basketball to now, there's a lot of buzz around the football program over the next couple of weeks, and then as we get into spring practices and to see how this team develops. And we haven't even really discussed whether or not Sam Ellinger.
I was just thinking that.
There's still a decision to be made there. There's still a decision to be made in terms of whether or not he could come back.
The timing on that was crazy, because there were reports that he was going to come out and declare that he's saying that he's not coming back. I mean, that he's not coming back. And now this happens. Seems like
there was no announcement.
There was no announcement. Yes, this
Right.
is weird. Like, this is weird. Kerry, I know you have a take on this.
Well, no, for me, it's really interesting. And Sark said he's going to give Sam a call. He's going to talk to him. And, there's the part of me that says, like, we kind of know what Sam is. We know what his limitations are. We know what kind of player he is. We know the leader that he is, and all those things. but there's kind of the part that's like with the regime change, when there's talk about like Bryce Young potentially, transferring from Alabama to Texas to follow Sarkisian to be quarterback here. And we talk about what we saw from Casey Thompson in the Alamo Bowl and Hudson Card and the talent that he brings.
Yeah, exciting.
Yeah, how much, like if you're a new coach coming in that's going to, that wants to run the program and like build it in your image, do you go with someone that's been in the program for 4 years now, full-time starter, and you have 1 year to kind of develop them over that 1 year and they're gone? Or do you want to go with somebody that you can potentially have as a 2 to 3 year starter and kind of build the offense? Because I think that's one of the things that jumped off the screen for us in the Alamo Bowl was like Casey Thompson's a different player than Sam. He has a different skill set.
Oh yeah.
And we talked about like, maybe that's a better fit for Tom Herman's offense, those kinds of things.
What about Sark's offense though?
Well, that's kind of what I'm curious about. I mean, he's had so many different kinds of quarterbacks, and I guess it kind of comes down to what he wants to build. What is he looking for?
Yeah, to me, he's more of a Mac Jones type player like Sam is. So I think this gets really interesting, guys. Like, I'd hate to beat a dead horse on this thing because it seems like we've been talking about this all year. But I think there's a realistic chance that he may come back, because we were talking about he only comes back if there's a new coach. Well, there's a new coach here that has a lot of experience, and his draft stock's not very good right now.
Bingo. And that's exactly where, like, I think from Sam's point of view, when you look at what he did with what Sark did with Mac Jones this year, turning the guy into what I think they were talking about, like him potentially being a first round pick, like a late first round, but Mac Jones is a first round pick because of what he's done developing him. And if you're Sam, you kind of go, well, my stock isn't all that great right now. Like, maybe he is ready to go pro, and
in a long time.
Yeah, maybe it is in his best interest to come back.
And now the pieces with Sam are not young pieces next year. They are developed, older. Like Bijan's not going to be a sophomore. Roshan's a junior. You're going to have obviously all the receivers basically coming back. Because at Brennan Eagles, you're going to have it looks like to me a better offensive line, which is a weird thing to say. So I don't know, man. It's going to be a tough choice for Sam, man. If I'm him, I'm thinking really hard about coming back, and I just think the timing of everything, where he was supposed to announce, it didn't announce, this happens. Like, I don't know. But like you said to Kerry yesterday over text, like maybe Sark's going to say, hey, thanks, but no thanks, but we'll see.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting. I guess I'll ask this question to you guys before we move on to talk some hoops. But if you're Sam, you have that conversation and you're interested in coming back, and you have that phone call with Sark, and he says, okay, great. We're definitely, like, you're obviously welcome back, but it's going to be an open competition for the quarterback spot. You can come back, but you're not the starter. You got to compete with Thompson, Card, maybe Bryce Young. Like, it's an open competition.
No, I'm not coming back. If I'm Sam, I'm not coming back in that instance. But I also don't think that would be a condition. I don't think that would be the case. I understand where you're rolling with this. If I'm Sam, the answer is no in that particular scenario. But if Sam's coming back, he's the guy, and we may see this quarterback room thin out a little bit if Sam decides he wants to come back, which I totally understand.
Yeah.
But the appeal behind coming back to the University of Texas, and regardless of the situation, his name will be across the record books for every single statistic at the university if he comes back, if for no other reason, just because of the number of games that he played. Like, he will be statistically the greatest quarterback in the history of the
5-year starter.
Hey, yeah, but I'm saying, like, I know it's weird to think about it in that sense, but there's something to be said for having your name all across the record books as well.
What about the redemption side of it? Look at the year that Sam had standing on the 50-yard line. Like, you don't think he loves the University of Texas just like we do. Like, if we went through this type of experience, put yourself in your position, you don't really have anywhere to. You're probably going to be an undrafted free agent anyway. If you come back and there is competition, you're still going to go as an undrafted free agent the next year. Why would you not want to come back? It just seems like two guys that are going to talk about. I could see this conversation happening where they're talking about. Sam's talking about redemption and how he wished things would have ended, and Sark can really, really empathize with that
and relate to that. Yeah.
Well, and don't forget a certain quarterback that played under Sark that came back for his senior year and, took that USC team to a national championship game. I mean, remember that whole thing about, that Sark was his quarterback coach, Matt Leinart. This whole, like, he's going to go early to the draft and all that stuff. And he came back, and it became this joke about, like, he only took the ballroom dancing class. Like, that was the only class he had to take to stay eligible and stuff like that. But, like, it is going to be fascinating. Jay, you mentioned the record book thing, and Mike, you mentioned the redemption story. These things kind of coming together where, what have we been talking about with Sam all these years? Like, he's statistically a good been a great quarterback at Texas, all these things, but where's the trophies? Where are the big, like, he's not in that pantheon of the Colt McCoys, the Vince Youngs. I mean, he hasn't won a bit, James Brown won a Big 12 championship. Like, he's just not there in terms of how he's held in that regard. You come back for one more season, you win a Big 12 championship. Even if you don't make the play, just win a Big 12 championship. Go win a New Year's Six bowl game or something like that. I think it completely changes the legacy for him.
Yeah, because I don't think him coming back and being unsuccessful is going to change his legacy right now. So I think there's nothing.
Exactly.
I think there's nothing but upside for Sam right now.
Yeah, and if he's in a hurry to start his NFL career, okay. Like, if you just want to start working, if you want to, I get it. Like, that's something to consider here too. But I also think that he loves this university more than he loves the thought of a job. You see that he's left everything on the field for this university and for this football program. And
last thing, do you want him back?
Man, it's hard to say. Honestly,
man.
No, it's really hard to say, because there is that aspect of, like, a new start, a new beginning, like, kind of a clean slate with Sarkisian, and, like, let's see where it goes. But that might just be, like, wanting change for change's sake, like that. So I don't know. It's really hard to say. If Sam comes back, I think we'll be thrilled about it. But, like, I'm also, if he decides not to come back, I'm still going to be excited about what the offense is going to do. And I think Sark will have a quarterback running it that's going to do just fine. So, like, I don't know.
Yay or nay, Kerry?
I love Sam Ehlinger. I love what he's done for this football program. I love how much heart he has. I love how much. I don't want him to be the quarterback next season.
Yeah.
Kerry, you in the same boat?
Yeah, I'm saying no.
I'm knocking on the door, baby. I'm knocking on the door, ladies. Let's go.
I'm
saying no. I'm saying let's get a fresh start.
Man, I'm getting hyped for next year already if he comes back.
Hey, I'm saying though, like, here's the deal, like
11-1.
If he comes back, it's not that they're gonna win games. I mean, they'll win, but it's just I wonder if we talked about we saw the ceiling of what Tom Herman is as a head coach. We talk about people's ceilings, and I just wonder if we've seen Sam's ceiling at this point in terms of he hasn't had Tom Herman's was his head coach. Like, I get it. He was sort of limited there, but
he was recruited by Charlie Strong though. So
yeah.
Right.
I don't think we've seen. He was not a great fit for Tom Herman's what he wants to do. So
which is interesting because of he still fought through that and put up some really nice statistical years and looked good for a large chunk of his career. But he really wasn't a fit for what Tom Herman was trying to do. And it's interesting because I don't know if Steve Sarkisian has won with all kind of quarterbacks, but will it translate here? It's just, I'm ready for a fresh start. But if he comes back, I'm not going to be mad. I'm going to be like, okay, let's win.
That is the thing with Sarkisian. His MO is building the offense around skill sets. And, like, if Sam is coming back, he's not going to run a system that has Sam playing against his strengths and against his limitations. And again, when you've got Bijan Robinson and Roschon in the backfield, does Sam really need to throw it downfield, like, which is one of his limitations? It's the downfield ball. Like, does he really need to do that as much? No. And that's where, like, So that's why, like, I'd be excited because I feel like he would actually have an offense developed around him that would suit him best. But yeah, I think part of it is just like, yeah, we've seen Sam's limitations over the years now, and it's kind of like,
Yeah,
let's
but
see something a little different.
the
But
whole point though is what you just said. It's like, has he been used to has he put into the best position to be successful with his skill set throughout his entire
No.
career here?
He's
And
been Vincent.
no,
yeah, exactly. She was in the room with somebody that was really smart. I don't know if I don't know if that rubs, how that rubs off or whatever, but I don't know. I wouldn't be mad if he came back, but I almost think this is sort of the cycle has worked itself out. His time at the university has passed, and I think he will move on anyway. And he won't. I don't think he'll be drafted, but I think he'll get a look. He'll end up in the camp, and I think he'll make a practice squad or something like that. Like he'll get some traction. He'll hang around for a
He'll
little
probably
bit,
be a Pro Bowler the way these things work out with Texas development.
Right.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. But no, I'm excited. The development of these players, like a Jordan Whittington, like who we're going to see next year, and the way that Sarkisian, that it's like, I'm just so excited to see people put into positions to be successful, and the right guys, the superstars, the best athletes being put into positions to be successful regularly, and that's what we're going to see under Sarkisian, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So
Devontae Smith, he's pretty good. Let's go ahead and throw him the ball like 3 times in the end zone.
yeah,
right.
what a concept.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah,
Jared
exactly.
Wiley will get more than like 1 touchdown next season.
No, I mean, who knows with that?
Well,
guy,
let's not get crazy. Let's not get
here.
carried
away. So
all right.
He needs to be on the field more than 1 snap.
yeah, exactly. He'll be on the field. But anyways, good stuff with the football there, guys. I mean, this is just we were really anticipating coming on today and having a heavy basketball conversation, and then all this stuff went down yesterday, and there's a lot of buzz around this athletic department right now, Kerry, and it's just, and this basketball program is holding up its end of the bargain. At least it did yesterday against a top 3 Kansas team in Lawrence.
Yeah, let's get into it, man. What a game. It's not every day that the Texas Longhorns can go into Lawrence, Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse and win by 20 plus points. That doesn't happen every season. So the fact that we're just now getting to it on the show says a lot about what kind of school UT is. But
are you guys with me?
I got the basketball shirt on, man. I got the old Ozone shirt from the 02-03 season.
Are you guys riding with me until the end on this thing now?
Yeah, well, I'm in.
Hey, we were with. This is a positive sports experience. You got us on the wagon early on, and we're not getting off. It's
you had us on preseason, man. You know, it was one of those things where we thought we knew what we had with Shaka, and Mike was like, guys, this is gonna be the year to be on board this train, and we hopped on, and it has been a good ride. You know, this is a team that just had that athleticism. They jump out of the building. They can defend. It's just that they're smothering and quick and long, and
dare I say havoc.
Yeah,
dare I say havoc.
It looks the most like that since Shaka's been on campus,
right.
At least, and he has those athletes to do that. So it was a great game to watch yesterday. 84-59, I believe, was the final score, and that was just that's a statement, Mike. That's a statement win for Shaka Smart.
Yeah, I mean, man, everything was just pointing to this year with the type of players that you had, the camaraderie, just everything was pointing to a really great season. And I'm glad to see, barring the last minute turnovers in that Villanova game, this team's probably the number 1 team in the country. It's number 2 behind Gonzaga, or 3 behind Gonzaga and Baylor. Right now, I think they're going to come through as number 4 when the new polls come out. Either 4 or 5. I'm looking at probably 4 based on who lost this week, because everyone went down this week. Number 3, number 4, number 6, number 7, all lost this week. And the thing about this Texas team is if they're going to shoot anywhere near 35% or better from the 3-point line, there's only 1 or 2 teams that are better than Texas on any given day. Because what they did to Bill Self yesterday was they made him change his entire offensive philosophy in the second half yesterday. He took out the big man, David McCormick, tried to play super small yesterday. And Texas has said, nah, we'll just go ahead and just pound the rock inside the Sims, put Greg Brown out on the wing. We're too athletic. Kai Jones can guard. He can guard 2s and 3s. Like, hell, they can
It's
guard,
amazing.
him and Greg Brown can guard point guards. They're that long, that athletic.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have Courtney Ramey, who's going to play with some type of controlled aggression, and you get the best out of him. And you have Matt Coleman just being steady Eddie. I mean, there's just so many weapons. Andrew Jones didn't shoot well yesterday, but man, he was just creating. He had 3 assists yesterday, 7 rebounds, scored 14 points. It's just an all-around effort. I mean, it's just 1 through 8. We had Royce Ham and
Hepa
was out.
Yeah.
But you saw Donovan Williams. I mean, Lord, he had a block yesterday that I'm like, I mean,
Yeah, all these guys can jump out of the gym, man.
Just an incredible win. I mean,
well, and it's like because we were worried that it might have been Coleman that had to miss because of the COVID and the COVID tracing, and that to me would have been worrisome going in. But he ended up being in the clear and having the type of game that you need him to have. Like I that's my guy. Like I think as long as he's just like you said, Mike, steady Eddie, just lead this team, be a floor general, do the things you need to do to win, and put your teammates into position to be successful. They're going to be good. And he had a nice all around game with 13 points, 6 boards, and 6 assists yesterday. So that to me is the type of game. Like if you get that out of him every night, you're going to probably be successful because all the rest of the guys around him are so athletic. It's fun to watch these guys play, and they play for each other, Kerry, like no team we've seen on this campus in a long time.
Right. And I listened to the post-game interview yesterday on the radio with Craig Way interviewing Shaka Smart and Matt Coleman, and just these guys are locked in right now. Like just their approach to everything. Coleman talked about them missing some guys yesterday, not having the depth that they usually have, and having that feeling of like, we need to go out here and perform. We need to do this. But Shaka made a really, really, really interesting point when I think Craig Way mentioned something about going into Lawrence, and like, this is only the second time Texas has won in Lawrence ever. And Shaka said something that was curious to me. He goes, a lot of times when we've come into Lawrence and come into this building, we already were kind of coming in with the thought that like we were going to lose, that we weren't good enough. And when you come in that way, you're already defeated, especially going into a building like that against a program like that. If you go in even thinking that you're not on that level, you're done. And he said that is just not the approach of this team, that they are just like, they went in there fully confident, and not a false confidence either. Like not a fake, like, oh, we're a good team. Like that they really truly believe that they were going to go in there and throttle Kansas. And they did. And then Craig asked, well, you got a quick turnaround Tuesday night, all that stuff. He's like, it's just the mental turnaround, celebrate it for a day, but we're focused. It's on to Iowa State now. Like,
yeah,
there's no like, what a huge program defining win and that stuff. It's like, nope, we're moving on.
Because Texas is the better team. I mean,
Yeah.
this is a top 5 roster in the country. So
Yeah,
It's
and
gonna
it's
be
just
interesting. Yeah,
Shaka's just. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jay.
No, it's cool. They are a top 5 roster. They had a better roster than Kansas. Period. Even they only played 8 guys yesterday. Texas did 8-guy rotation. That some of the depth guys, like we were saying, they had to miss yesterday. They didn't even play their full rotation of guys that normally see some minutes. And Brown had an awful game yesterday.
yeah, terrible.
Like, I mean, he was not good. And then you just see all these guys around him. Like Kai Jones looks like Giannis Antetokounmpo. Like, I mean, like the skill set that he has, I'll tap the brakes a little bit. But my point is that he shows those flashes, and it's the athleticism, it's the length, it's the strides on the court, it's the amount of space he can make up in a short amount of time. There's so many of them that are like that on this team. I mean, you see every single one of these guys, they're intense at the right time. Like I think how did you describe Ramey a little bit ago, Mike?
Yeah, he plays with this he put controlled aggression. Like
he turns the ball over a little bit too much for my taste at this point, but it's because I feel like he's trying so hard. Like his effort is just so elevated that sometimes his body doesn't keep up with his brain because
He
he's just
turned the ball over 16 times yesterday, and he won by 25 on the road in Kansas.
yeah,
that's
that
what-
says a ton, Kerry.
That's what I was going to get to, is that we've still yet to see this team play a perfect game.
Yeah.
They haven't had to. Like we talked about, Greg Brown didn't have a good day, but like even at halftime yesterday, the studio guys were talking about like, well, you know, Texas is in good shape, but they got to clean up their shot selection. They were taking some like misguided looks and stuff like that. That could get them in trouble in the second half. And like, they didn't play a perfect game, and they still go into Lawrence and win by that margin. Like,
Well,
Yeah.
and the thing is too is that at the end of the day, even if you're not making shots, you're still going to defend like crazy. I mean, Kansas is a really good 3-point shooting team. They shot 3 for 23 yesterday, 13%. On the season, Texas is holding opponents under 25% from 3. Like these are historical season numbers right now through 9 games for Texas basketball.
well, and on the defensive side, when you mentioned like the controlled aggression, it reminded me of something. One of the first questions that Craig Way asked Shaka after the game was like about, you know, how they came out and started the game. And Shaka said something like, yeah, we came out, we had a lot of like, we wanted to come out with a lot of positive violence.
Yeah, really.
I love it. Yeah,
Like-
it's great.
And is that not how, like we talk about havoc, like how this team is playing? Like it's positive violence. They're physical. They're not backing down from anybody. They're not, we've seen these Texas teams in the past kind of shy away a little bit when they get punched in the mouth. You could say that for a lot of the programs at UT over the last decade, but like
That's
it's
very fair. Yeah.
you know, but like this team just has a different feel about it. And you know, it's hard not to look at the conference schedule for the rest of the season and like have nightmares and just go, oh man, this is gonna,
They're going to
What a
lose a couple of
gauntlet.
games.
Yeah,
Like,
they're going
it's gonna
to.
happen. Like they're going to lose a couple of games, and the response to that, and how they lose too. You know, because Mike, they're going to go cold. They're going to have a night where they go 3 for 23 from 3 like Kansas did, and they just won't score enough to win. It's going to happen. Like, and we'll see it, and we'll talk about it, and we'll say, okay, how are they going to respond to this? How do they, you know, do they go back to doing what they were doing well? Go ahead.
But I think the thing that won't happen is, if we do talk about that, is they probably still had a chance to win that game because you can defend the other side just as well.
Exactly.
That's going to give you every night. It's going to give you an opportunity. This team can play in the 50s. They can play in the 80s. Like, oh man, this is just fun to watch too, man. Like it's so fun to watch.
Well,
Well-
and like you were saying, the violent part of things, you can afford to do that, and when you have the
Bingo.
depth that you have on this team, you can afford to go out there and do that and pick up a couple of fouls, being aggressive. You know,
18
But set the
fouls
tone.
yesterday.
yeah, that's great. You know, like
Yeah.
use up your fouls because you have the ability to pull guys off the bench and just slide right in because you have that depth. And that to me is the difference in this team, is they can afford to go out there and do that. They can afford to go out there and commit some fouls. Or, you know, like Brown was basically non-existent yesterday. You know, if he would get into foul trouble early in a big game, yeah, it's a loss. But then you just put the next guy in, and everybody's just as athletic and just as long, and everybody's moving just as intensely and working together as a cohesive unit. It's fun to watch. They look like a very well coached basketball team right now, and they have the horses to go a long way this season.
Yeah, Shaka's coaching his butt off. I know we're running out of time, but last game, Oklahoma State, barn burner to the end. He took out Ramey. Ramey was struggling in the second half. He slotted in Donovan Williams. Donovan Williams played really well and really was a spark plug to help win that game. Yesterday, Greg Brown struggling. What do? You give Kai Jones 23 minutes this time. And he was at 12 points, 5 rebounds, a steal. Like, it's just so interchangeable. And you don't even have Jace Febris yet. And you were missing
Right.
Royce Ham. Like, you were missing Royce Ham, who Jericho Simpson said, all right, cool, I guess I got to take care of everything, 11 and 12. Like, it's just, this is a great team, guys. Like, I'm so excited.
Well, we've got just a couple minutes left here, but on that note, here we are. It's the new year, and I want to, like, about this basketball team, where have the expectations readjusted for you? You know, we talked about like we talked about preseason, like this is a top 15 team. Like the roster alone suggests that this is going to be a top 15 team. We get into the top 10. Now we're talking about a top 5 ranking. I know we're just getting into conference play, there's a long way to go. But where should the expectations be for this team? I mean, when we're at the end of the season, like what is an acceptable? I don't even like saying acceptable. I mean, so many things can happen, but like
Sweet 16 is acceptable, but
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
I'm not even gonna say it.
It's hard to not look past it though, and so I think the second weekend was our expectation really
Yeah.
coming into this season. Anyway, I don't think it's necessarily changed a ton. I think you have to get to the Sweet 16. Crazy things happen in the tournament, whatever.
Right.
But it's hard not to want to look past that with the talent on this team, with the type of basketball that they play. It's hard to not say that, to feel like this is a special team that could make a deep run in the tournament.
Yeah, I think instead of talking about like a top half finish in the Big 12, we're talking about more of like a top 2 to 3 finish in the Big 12 and a higher tournament
gets you,
seed.
Which you're a 2 seed if
Right.
at that point, honestly. Like, so that's definitely, I could see
Right.
that being the case at any point.
But yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think the tournament provides a lot of crazy variables that get thrown your way. But I think the one thing we've been talking about is like, just get out of the first weekend of the tournament. If you can get to the Sweet 16, then you're kind of okay. Like, bounce goes your way or goes against you, whatever. But I think that would be the next big stepping stone for Shaka in this program is let's get there. Let's see how it all, just get out of the first weekend of the tournament comfortably, and then we'll see what happens.
It would be disappointing, though. I think I would be disappointed if they got knocked out in the Sweet 16 with the way that this roster is constructed. I think we would have every reason to feel that, but I don't. But I think in terms of what does this team have to get now? It's the Sweet 16, and beyond that, they've already shown that they can hang with the best teams in the country, and that Baylor game being postponed now to be rescheduled for later in the season. I mean, it's going to be great. I mean,
looms large.
Bring on Baylor, baby. Bring them on.
That's right.
Let's do it.
Well, guys, we got about under a minute here, so I think we're going to have to call it here for the day, but man, good stuff. Let's see how this assistant coaching thing shakes out and see what the Horns can do on the court against Iowa State this week. So
yeah, Mike, thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
guys.
man, it's been a pleasure, boys. And yeah, let's do it again soon. Thanks, everybody.
Welcome.
ATX represent Fatal, baby. All they know